Hi, my name is Trey Keys Gillantine, and I'll be giving you a brief informative speech on Steve Jobs and his career overall and how he formed Apple as we know today. And before we get into it, let's take a minute to think about what life would be like without Steve Jobs and his inventions like the iPhone, iPod, iPad, the Macintosh, iMac, the iPod Touch, anything Apple, any point in time, he had a hand in it playing. He had a role, and he did it fairly well, and his legacy lives on today in many products. Alright, before we get started, let's talk about the Apple logo when they first co-founded the brand between him and Steve Wozniak. They have Apple Computer Company, and they have Isaac Newton with the apple falling on his head as their logo. First, we'll start off with a summary. We had first Apple logo, the rainbow apple with Apple written, and then, Steve Jobs wanted to create an iconic symbol without any words, so then they removed it and just had Apple, and then kept it and then added different color schemes throughout the years. And then in the film, they go through this change and you get to see it within all their products that they release, and it was just a nice little history to watch. So we went from the beginning of having Apple with what type of product it was to having just the apple, the iconic Apple symbol. And throughout the movie, all you get to see is just Steve Jobs releasing product after product and the grind he had to put in order to achieve that. First, let's talk about the cast. You have Michael Fesner. All right, he played Steve Jobs. You had Kate Winslet. She was Steve Jobs' right-hand woman and took notes, handled the press, brought people in, brought people out, scheduled everything, and kept everything organized. Then you had Steve Wozniak himself. That was played by Seth Rogen. And throughout the film, you get to see the role he played. Even though he was a co-founder, he had to step away and then always humble Steve Jobs and give him his 2 cents, per se. And then you had the first CEO, Jeff Daniels, and played by Jeff Daniels, sorry. Alright, let's take a minute and talk about Steve's leadership skills throughout the film. This is my favorite quote. Steve Wozniak was telling Steve Jobs that he didn't really play a part in the company, that he was just there and was a sociopath and wanted everything his way. And so he asked him, "What do you do?" And Steve Jobs gave this really nice analogy. The musicians play their instruments, and he himself plays the orchestra, which was great leadership skills. He knows how things works, and he knows how to operate, and he knows what works for him, and he knows what works best for the company. And those are some really good leadership skills, especially to become the first $1 trillion tech company. Then he also introduced the first slogan Apple ever had in history: "Think different." So Steve Jobs was always about thinking outside the box, thinking ahead, thinking about the future. Another quote Steve Jobs had was, "While you were doing this, I was thinking about the future in my garage," when he first started Apple in the 1970s. And I believe this film really shows how how far ahead Steve Jobs was and how much leadership he had to offer the world and for his company. And that was the main point, the main message in the film.